That was good times. I like when funny things happen.
Whenever I answer the phone, I'm like, hello.
What pissed you off?
It's a great argument to have.
I love my mom, but I think she's half crazy for doing that.
How dare you?
Do you work with your girlfriend, Mark? Or your wife?
I keep them separated. Sometimes I call people, they don't answer the phone. I'm like,
Wrong number, click.
Well, he's not that smart. Sometimes he sounds like he knows what he's doing.
yeah.
Go.
Therefore, you're an ass, and I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah, but what do we know? Before you do, because I'm not actually... There we go. I think I'm good now. Because of all the confusion, I didn't even know if I was actually recording this.
We weren't even recording. Oh, no. That could have been an absolute...
Do you know what, Mark? Your backups might come in very handy because I very well could have hit the stream as opposed to the record button.
Oh, I see.
Is what could have happened.
Nice.
So...
Wow, we're really flying by the seat of our pants.
We're very professional here. I mean,
I was going to say what's funny, well, and maybe you guys heard this earlier, but we went a long time without kind of recording episodes. We had a lot of them sort of pre-recorded and they just ran. So we've really gone, like 4 weeks or something without recording. Like, it's been a really long time.
Yeah, without the three of us together, because Mark and I did do ours like last week, shortly before the show.
Without you. And man, it was so great.
It was smooth.
It was good. It was good. You know what? I feel like I'm the glue that binds everything together, though.
Yeah.
If by the glue you mean the one that muddies up the waters, then yeah.
Right. Kind of adds weird texture. Weird texture and sort of, keeps stuff held together maybe a little. Elmer's glue.
Elmer's glue. The stuff that you can eat as a child and it's fine.
Yeah. So, anyways,
more like a glue stick I would actually go with.
Glue stick.
Really?
An Elmer's glue stick?
Elmer's glue stick. Pretty useless, but pretty cheap and effective sometimes.
Doesn't really hold anything together unless it's two perfectly clean sheets of paper. But we have friends.
Yes, we do. Yes, if you guys heard it. We have friends.
Well, two of them.
At least.
Do we have as a podcast have friends? Well, we do actually, because we know that for a fact. We have listeners that send us stuff now.
That's true.
Superman Ryan and Mountain Gamer. Nice. So my wife and I is who I was referring to. We have friends who are moving out of state. They're in the Ann Arbor area now, and they are moving down to Atlanta, Georgia. He is outside. He does outside sales for like a sister company for the company I work for. And so it got us to thinking, like, upping and moving at that point in your, we're all about the same age. So, and we're all from sort of, different states of life. I'm married with kids. Mark is married, no kids. Jeff is not married and has no kids. But for no matter what your circumstance, at age 33, I remember, and I think the three of us can all sort of relate to, you don't really think much of moving when you're 18 or 20. Like, you need someone with a pickup truck and you need a weekend. Like, my wife and I were talking about these people picking up with their kid, selling their home and moving down to Atlanta, Georgia. That seems like a tremendously sort of like exhaustive process.
Well, you got to remember though, if you're moving for a job, they might move you. I got moved once
They're moving him.
So if they hire the movers and all that stuff, you don't have as much to worry about. As much. You still have something to worry about, but not as much to worry about. It was really nice when I had movers. For the one time in my life that I moved and had like the least stuff ever that I've had to move. Yes, my company gave me movers, and every other time I've been on my own, and that sucks.
It's interesting that you say that, Mike, because I've moved several times, different countries. Now, granted, I don't have a kid. I actually don't have a house, so maybe I have less furniture and stuff. But like, I'm still okay with just abandoning everything I have and moving somewhere else.
I don't know. For me, it seems like such an ordeal. Like they're moving down there. The way the real estate market is, for those of you who aren't familiar with that in the United States right now, if you list a house, it sells like almost right now. Um, so, sort of the common way to do things when you talk about real estate anymore is you have to sell your place before you even think about looking at other places. So once your house is done and sold, then you can start looking wherever you want to look. Um, so these people have to move down to Atlanta, Georgia for work, and they've found this place that they're going to rent. But when you rent a place, if anybody's ever had like an apartment lease or something like that, you always have to rent something for like a year. Very rarely do you find a place you can rent month by month.
Without it being a track then.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah, in Flint, I guess it's not all that hard, but you know. So they're moving down with their kid to a place that they're renting, and like, they don't even know that they're going to like living in Atlanta. I mean, really, they have no house. That I mean, you make an apartment feel like a home for a while, but just totally jumping into the unknown. I know it would take me out of my comfort zone at least a little bit for sure.
I think moving takes anybody out of their comfort zone, though. It's like I
I
don't
like it.
I don't want to move when our lease ends here. I'm thinking about extending our lease. Granted, we have a house and a setup and this and that, so we have that going for us. But we could get a lot cheaper for a lot bigger if I moved outside the city at all. But I'm comfortable here, so I don't want to spend the time to pack up and move to have the same job and still have to drive into the city and just have all that other stuff around me change. I don't know. I moved enough in my life. I'm sick of moving.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it, especially with having a kid. I think that's like the situation you described, Mike, sounds like the worst. First, you have a kid, which means that wherever you get your first apartment and then where your house is relative to that means that you might have to move your kid from one school to another school, which is just horrific for a young person that age. 'Cause they'll make friends and they'll lose friends and they'll make new friends.
Fortunately, their child he just turned 5, so he'll be going into kindergarten where they move. So it's not like he had already been established in a school.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like he had done some preschool type stuff, and yes, he will lose, all the preschool friends he's developed, but making the jump from preschool to kindergarten, you're going to make new friends anyway.
All right.
But I don't know. It just seems like a lot. Seems like a lot of work.
See, I like moving, not the actual process of moving sometimes, because that could be a hassle. But like you get to, it's an opportunity to see a different area and experience new things. But I guess if you're moving from like Jeff, like just from inside the city to outside the city, that's a lot of hassle with very little difference. You get a little bit bigger house, you get a little bit less rent, but you're not like changing your lifestyle drastically. But if you're moving from Michigan to like down south, that would be quite a bit of change.
Now, the concept of moving and the act of actually physically moving is one of the things I hate about moving. Like packing up and making sure everything's ready to go and finding a new place for all your stuff. Do you think that people who own moving companies regret their own moves? Or do you think they're more like, yeah, just another day at the office, like whatever, we're just gonna, move this stuff? I always wondered, like people who do moving for a living, if I hire a mover, I'm happy that they're doing the work that I don't want to do. When they have to move, do you think they hire movers? Do you think
No.
they just do that and they're really resentful because they hate moving? Like, what's the thing that happens on their end?
I assume they probably get most of the time, I would say, probably not all the time, but I would assume that most of the time they get a fairly substantial discount with the company they work for. And if that's the case, why would you move yourself?
I mean,
Right.
but would you hire your own company to move you?
Oh yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure.
what if you're the guy that's on that day? Your job is to move yourself. I mean, if you're gonna have to move
Paid for it.
somebody, like it's better to move your own stuff
And get paid for it.
and get paid for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather move my own stuff and get paid for
But
it than move
do you
my
think
own
they do
stuff
that?
and
You
not
think
get.
they'd pay you to move your own stuff? As your discount is, we will pay you so you can take the day to move your own stuff
That'd
with
be
our
awesome.
equipment. It'd be awesome, but would they do it?
I would assume you
I mean,
get
if they
some.
charge you full price and you're working and you're getting paid for it, then in a way you are getting a discount.
Right. Right. I've never got
Yeah,
paid for
take the day
moving my
off.
stuff.
I've also never gotten paid for moving my stuff before.
Well,
I would
there you
love
go.
to get paid to
So,
move my stuff.
so you had your stuff moved for you, right, Jeff?
Once.
Now- How dickish can you be with the moving company? Can you be like, my
So-
closet's right there, so you could just put, if you could just take that to the new closet, try to keep it in the
So-
exact same order.
I don't. The ironic thing was they repacked all the dishes because I had moved out of a college dorm, moved
Right.
into my parents' house for a grand total of 3 weeks, and then they moved me. Mike will be right back. But then they moved me to where I had to go.
Right.
So my stuff was still packed from moving out of the college dorm. They repacked all the dishes and all the glassware and everything that I had because they wanted their insurance and liability was that they
Right.
had to pack it so that it wouldn't break. But then they looked at stuff like my computer desk and they're like, yup, this is the particle board, so it's not even covered. It doesn't matter if it breaks. And they would just like lift it up in as big a sections as they could and walk it out the door. And I'm just like, you don't
Wait,
cover
so-
the physical furniture that's already there, but you have to individually wrap all my glasses because those are part of your insurance.
So wait, if they broke that furniture,
If they had broken it, he straight up told me if we break this desk, it does not matter. We cannot be held responsible for this because it's made of particle board. And they didn't break it. They did a very good job with it, but it was just like, wow, like the things
Well,
that I
it's
would
not the
expect
same
that
thing.
would be moved that I couldn't physically do myself or I didn't want to do myself, like breaking apart this desk because I thought you guys would know the best way to do it because you do this on a regular basis. That's the thing that you don't cover. Whereas the glasses that I could have thrown in the back of my car
Okay.
as I'm
Yeah.
going there are the things that you do cover on a regular basis. Like,
right, and the glasses cost like $1.
yeah,
So,
I mean,
yeah.
granted, my desk at the time was like a $120 desk from Walmart or something like that. It wasn't an expensive desk, and I understand why you don't want to cover things like that as a company. But what choice did I have at that point? I didn't know that you didn't cover that stuff until you showed up at my house the day of the move. So all of a sudden,
Right.
I'm like, no, this is very important to me. I need to make sure it's covered. I have to now move it myself.
Yeah, if you want not, taken care of roughly, yeah.
Yeah, it was the strangest thing in the world. They sent this huge truck over to my house, like because my parents' house is a big house,
Right.
not realizing that they're not moving a house, they're moving this little section of this room because this is my stuff. Like I'm the one moving out. Like the family's not moving somewhere else.
That's gotta be like the saddest little truck inside that huge truck. Like
It was
3%.
it was literally the size of a standard old semi truck that they showed up at my house with, and I was just like, and the guy had come over the week before to do an assessment on how big of a vehicle they needed, and they
Right.
based it. I showed him all the stuff that was going to be moved, and he was like, "That's it, but this is a huge house," and I'm like, this room is my room. And like this desk that's in this room is the only thing that's moving. And they still
Right.
sent a vehicle based on the size of the house, not the size of the stuff that was moving.
They didn't believe you.
They said, well, they only sent 2 movers as opposed to they would have normally sent 4. But it was still the same size
First,
vehicle.
they asked for 4 movers. I mean, you're not paying for it.
They literally moved me in even rewrapping all of my dishes, maybe
Right.
they were at my parents' house for a grand total of 45 minutes packing up the stuff. Like it was, they were quick. They did know what they were doing. And like I said, the insurance didn't cover the desk,
Right.
but they
They took
didn't
care
do
of it.
anything. It was they did it perfectly fine. It didn't break or anything like that. So they knew what they were doing.
Do you think they liked having you as a customer because they're like, oh, we have to move, we get paid for the move, but this is like the easiest move job ever.
They were excited to go to the area we were going to because they already had plans to go out to the bar in that area that night because they really liked this bar. But they were done like 6 hours before they had been slated to get done by.
That's great.
It was,
The first time I moved out onto my, in my apartment, I don't. Do you guys remember my old apartment over on like Maple Road?
I don't remember the apartment. I remember
The very first place I ever moved out, Boulder Creek. It's kind of
right before you moved into Tudor Estates.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Right.
Yes, I was there like once or twice.
I moved everything I owned in one pickup truck.
Like one trip, you mean, or?
Oh yeah. One. It was one trip for sure. Well, I was 18, 17, 18. I was very young. The only stuff I had was like a bed and the couch. Actually, the couch that's behind me right now.
Oh,
Really?
survived that whole time.
Wow.
That's correct.
That's kind
correct.
of amazing.
Yeah, I know. It is. It was the couch that was in the Flint house. It's the same one. It's just
Wow.
it's a basement couch now, obviously. It's not a nice couch.
Wait, is that? I might be wrong. Is that the couch? Did that come from Corey's basement?
No.
Oh,
No.
damn.
Mm,
If
no.
you still had that couch, I was gonna be so like happy and so proud.
I think
Do you know the story that I'm talking about moving that couch?
coming up out of the basement.
Yes.
Yeah, I was there with you.
I know. It was just
Yeah,
you and
oh,
I.
yeah.
I didn't know if you remembered.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm not sure what happened to that couch.
Mark's
This
so
couch
confused.
moved with me to the apartment. And then it wasn't until we moved into the trailer that couch made it over. And this one went back to, I don't even remember. I think maybe my mom's basement or something. And so no, the orange couch was in the trailer, but this one is just sort of stuck to me like glue through my whole life. Now it's my basement couch.
Oh
But
yeah,
it's
I
a
guess
good
that
couch.
one couch was orange, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Orange couch. Mark's
But
so
yeah, that one,
confused.
I absolutely remember what you were talking about. Like, it was a nightmare bringing it up. So when I moved in with a girl when I was 18, we brought this couch out from what was like her. It's kind of hard to explain, but she had a bedroom that was in a basement, but the stairs down to the basement were off the garage at the house where she lived. And so Jeff and I were trying to get this couch out of there to take to the place, and it would not fit. I mean, we couldn't, for the life of us, figure out how they even got it down these stairs in the first place. I don't know if maybe I seem to recall there was a railing.
So what we ended up finding out after the fact was because the problem we had was this railing, and we found out after the fact that this railing didn't exist when they put the couch
Right,
down
they put it
there.
on after. So we fought with this thing for. Do you even remember how long?
It was,
we had,
it was
was
a
a
while.
it was a long time. I do remember that trying to get this stupid couch out of this basement off the garage, and I remember doing a lot of like trying to bench press this couch. And,
Well, the way we finally got it out of there because it wouldn't make the turn because of the railing.
Right.
So the only way to get it was since it was in the garage, it was like a nice tall ceiling. And Mike was like, the only way we can do this is if we lift this couch literally from like the bottom of the stairs, lift it straight up all the stairs and then over top of the railing. So like, you're talking like a flight of stairs plus the railing. We had to lift it straight up over, and it's Mike and I. And I'm like, dude, there's no freaking way that we can get this couch out of here. And Mike goes, well, I don't know. Let's try. And I swear to God, I went up to the top of this railing and I see this couch like this level right here because, I'm where I'm standing up, he's starting to push it up a little bit and I see it to this level. And I see it actually slowly start to go up. And I'm like, oh my God, Mike's literally underneath it, just bench pressing it up like this. He got it to the point where I could grab it from the top, and I pulled it and guided it over top of the railing while I think he ended up running and like having to grab a stick to push it up like the rest of the way after we got this out there. We like flopped this thing. I swear to you, he bench pressed it like 10 feet into the air, like for it to come out of this place. And every time I've described the story to somebody, it loses so much like meaning. But being there, man, just
I've never been that smart, but I can lift heavy things. So. Oh,
I don't even think we were that good of friends at the time. Like, we were kind of more like acquaintances, that I was just a guy who was like, yeah, I like this guy. I'll help you move. You need some help moving. And I was like, Mike is the guy who bench presses couches. Like,
yeah, I do remember that was a fiasco. In fact, I'm pretty sure I broke a TV the first time I ever moved, which turned out to be like one less thing in the bed of the pickup truck I had to move at the time.
Like, we're going to have to make 2 trips.
Never mind.
1 trip.
Yeah, I mean, if I can't remember if both of you had been to that apartment or not, but it was.
I was there. Like, you guys didn't live there for like a full year.
No.
If I recall, didn't you? Okay. If I recall, you're the first person I realized that you could break a lease. But didn't you guys have to wait for somebody else to move in and cover all the rent until somebody else did? But you got lucky and somebody moved in like the next month.
No, they just let us go on it.
Oh.
No, that sounds familiar, Jeff. Maybe somebody else that
somebody else must have done that, and I didn't know that was a possibility in like a lease breaking clause.
I always wonder in those situations. Like, I understand why they have the laws and whatever, but let's say you have 3 empty slots and Sony wanted to do this. Can you say those 3 slots have to be filled before someone takes over your apartment, or is it the next person that would take it would automatically take your spot?
God, I don't know. You could probably be a real dick about it at that point, because if you signed a lease.
Yeah, I think it just depends on the landlord.
And that's one thing, like, I will tell you, DC renters laws are very heavily tenant-based, because so many tenants in DC got screwed over for so long. Like, they pretty much organized a union way back in the day or whatever they did and made all these laws. And it's great if you're a tenant, but it's only great if you know and understand the law. And it's funny because I've done a lot of research on DC tenant laws because I got screwed over the first time that I lived here.
Right.
And I know that one of my friends is a landlord in DC and doesn't know. I ask her questions and she'll tell me something and I'll be like, that doesn't sound quite right. I'm going to do some more research and look at this because it just doesn't sound right. And I'll have to correct her on her own interpretation of what the law is on a lot of things. One of them being, after the first year that you live somewhere, you are never required again to sign a lease at that establishment. And you can't be evicted any more than you could be if you had a lease without like proper notice in like 30 days. They can't just, once my lease is done, a year lease, I can go month to month at the maximum accepted increase that you can only do 1 time per year. So you have 1 time a year that you can raise the rent, and it's by a certain percentage that you're allowed to raise it once per year, and you can be month to month at that point from the rest of your time living at some place.
All right.
My roommate that I have now doesn't get it. Like, Julie and I live here with somebody else. He does not get it, and he's so afraid that if we go month to month, we'll get kicked out at the whim of the people who own the property, which is completely against what the law is. So every year he keeps like demanding that we re-sign a new lease because he wants the stability of a lease so that they can't kick us out. And I keep saying, we are not gaining anything by signing a year lease. You're locking us into something as opposed to going month to month where we're free to go if we want to go. He can't grasp it. He can't grasp that concept. He's so afraid that we're going to just get arbitrarily kicked out of an apartment because in his mind, if you're not on a lease, they can kick you out whenever they want.
I remember just watching a news article. You know those like couch, like you could rent a room, like if you're like a hotel or whatever online, and they have these agreements that people go in and they couch surf or they rent your room for a while. Anyways, there was an article.
Talking about like Airbnb or
Yeah, Airbnb. That was it.
okay.
And so this lady, she did an Airbnb, and being the smart woman she was, she's like, okay, let's switch up from Airbnb where I have to pay them a fee to let's do a private agreement, which then switched it over from being like, I don't know what kind of laws protecting like hotels, but it then went switched over to like basically renters laws, and then they just stopped paying her. And they're like, they're eating food from her kitchen without asking, and just like just being really horrible tenants. And she says like, I went through the laws and went through all the processes and trying to get them evicted, but there's very strong laws to prevent evictions. So she's like, I think she had them for like over a month in this case, and they didn't pay them or pay her a dime. So overall, I think in America you have very strong tenant laws.
Only in certain areas you do, yes, not everywhere.
So yeah, I mean, I've never met anybody that did that, but I imagine that kicking someone out of your apartment or an apartment is much harder.
Well, I argued our rent increase down.
Oh, really?
Like they told us that this is the new rent that we're going to charge you starting next year, and we want you to sign a year lease. And this is what started the whole argument. And I wrote, because it's actually a management company who runs our house. I wrote back and I said, for one, we don't need to sign a new lease. This is DC renters law subsection blah. I like gave them the subsections and everything, and I was like, states we don't have to sign a new lease anymore. We can go month to month, which we'd prefer to do because we don't want to be locked into a lease, as well as the raising of rent that you are doing is X number of percent, which is greater than the maximum allowable percentage that you're allowed to do year to year. And I gave them this whole spiel, and I said, what we will do, I said, we will be willing to sign a 1-year lease again with you guys if that's what you want, if you don't change our rent at all. Otherwise, we want to go month to month at the maximum allowable rental increase that you can do, which is still like less than the one that you're giving us now. I think that scared my roommate because he was like, dude, what are you doing? They're going to kick us out of here and not let us stay here. I'm like, they can't do that. Like, what you're missing is they're not allowed to do that legally. Like, we have a legal right to stay here. And we had them drop down our increase. However, he still wanted to sign the year lease, which is almost over again. So we're going to have to run into this whole thing in
Well, it's human nature to just want stability, I think. So like if you don't really do the legwork and think about the ins and outs of DC renters law, like it's so much easier to just say, well, give me, lock me in for a year and I know where I'm living.
Right.
I get this sort of case with people who are new to like working for a company that has contracts and stuff, where they'll be like, well, I don't really like this job, but I want to leave, sort of, but like I'm under contract, and I'm like, that contract's mostly for you. Like most of these contracts are to protect you from the company from screwing you over. You can quit your job whenever. I mean, sure, there might be like a pay penalty, but they still have to pay you for this, and they just like it seems like people are really ignorant.
No, there's definitely contracts that we have them at the hospital. If you don't stay at a unit for 18 months, you owe them like $7,000. It's to recoup training costs.
Well, yeah, but that's like paying a fee that it's sort of like with your phone contract, right? Like you're paying them like a lower fee to cover the cost of the phone that you bought because the phone's not really free. So when you leave the contract, you're paying back the phone. Same thing with your contract. Yeah, you can leave whenever you want, and you would have to pay for the training that you took. But it's not like I quit my job, so therefore they can just charge me arbitrary amount of money for no
No, it's
reason.
laid out specifically the amount of money, like in the contract that you sign.
Right. And especially like if you start the job, you did 1 week of contract of training. They can't like, oh, you owe us all this training plus this fee, and
$15
we're not going to pay.
million for
You know.
training for this 1 week.
So yeah, like I always tell someone, like if you don't like your job, just quit. And especially here in other countries, and they want to go back home to wherever they're from. Like, yeah, you could quit your job. You might not get your last paycheck, although legally they have to give you your last paycheck. They're not going to be able to go after you. Like that's one of the really crappy things with a lot of people who work in other countries is they give other people bad names because they're like, I'm so unhappy, and then they leave, and then like the apartment doesn't get paid, the electricity doesn't get paid, the rent doesn't get paid. So like now like the company that hosted them like are really really screwed over.
Mm-hmm. I would bet that happens a lot in your line of work, actually, because people moving away from not just home, it's their country, everything they're familiar with, everything that's normal to them. I bet that happens so much in that industry.
So there's always a little, I'm not exactly sure how it works, but there's always like an extra couple of people they hire depending on how large the company is. There are stories of people who like land at the airport and then buy a ticket and go straight back home. Like they didn't spend one whole day. They just came off from their 12-hour flight. They see the Japanese or the Korean or whatever, and they're like, this is a huge mistake. And then they just go flying right back home.
That'd be
I actually have a story that obviously is not related to going overseas and doing that situation, but
Right.
the job I worked at before where I'm at now, I was at an aluminum foundry, and we got to a point where we were extremely busy, to the point where we were looking to hire a couple temps to just sort of do go for labor, really is what it was. There was one temp that I hired in. I ran a department, and I was a one man department, so
Right.
it wasn't even like I was running the department. I was the department, and I was one of the like bottleneck areas where they wanted a temp, to help me out while we were as busy as we were. So we hired this temp. He started at 7 a.m. He left for lunch at 11:30 and never came back. I never saw the guy again. 4.5 hours, and he just boom, gone.
Did he do good work for the 4.5 hours?
No, he did. He was horrible. He was absolutely horrible. Like he was one of those guys where like Mark kind of talks about, like he must have came in the front door and said, no, this isn't for me, but I'll give it a shot. That sort of thing.
Right. See, doesn't that hurt you in a temp agency though? Like that's what I don't get is how do you
You
get
would think.
how do you get so many bad temps? Or we've known people that have worked multiple different temp jobs. Some of them doing very, very, very good work for these temporary companies, and some of them doing the crappiest jobs they possibly could and getting let go from multiple temp jobs and going to the next one the next day. And it's like, how does this temp agency keep giving you a chance when these people aren't wanting you back? Like, how does that work?
Well, because one company you failed, they didn't work out, so you give them a replacement and you just keep replacing.
Yeah, the temp agency doesn't care because they actually take a cut of your pay, so they'll keep placing you as long as they can.
But wouldn't you think that companies would stop dealing with that temp agency if they just keep giving you crappy employees?
I worked in Highland Park, Detroit. Like, no, they were. I'm sure all the temps were similar.
Well, same thing with
possibly
McDonald's.
true.
Why it's so hard to unionize McDonald's or any fast food restaurant is that because the employee turnover is so great that you can't really organize a very good plan. And like if it was sort of like McDonald's, like the people who actually needed a full-time job, if they made 50% or 60% of the workforce, they could probably organize a lot easier. But because it's mostly teenagers taking the job, working part-time, you can't organize anything.
Yeah.
So temp agencies, temp companies are great because then you always have a supply of people that you could always bring in to work, and you don't have to worry about them unionizing or demanding rights or whatever, because you can just replace
if they can't
someone
even
else.
get a real job, there's no way that they can set up a union. They're not that like vested.
Right. Well, I mean,
That was
whatever.
I was kidding, people. That was
Well, I mean, you're only half kidding, and it's sort of essentially true. Like, if
Don't tell people that.
all right, never mind.
Wasn't kidding, like all the way. Like that's it.
All right, we ready to get out of here?
I think so, guys. WDWKpodcast.com.
Catch us on Twitter and Facebook at.
Nope, just Twitter.
Gosh.
You can't put them both together. You can catch us on both, but at different places. So
Yeah, I was gonna say we're on Facebook. It's a weird name, whole weird situation. WDWK podcast at gmail.com, though that definitely works.
that definitely works.
Send us email because we like email. Well, I like email. Nobody else reads the email. I like email.
And if
I
it's
like
just
email too
on
because it got us
YouTube,
this
we'll comment back.
What was that, Jeff?
I
You
thought I like email too because it got us this background.
Oh yeah,
It's all from the email. Yeah.
that's true. Thanks, guys. See you later.
All right, everybody. Have a good one. See ya.
Whenever I answer the phone, I'm like, hello.
What pissed you off?
It's a great argument to have.
I love my mom, but I think she's half crazy for doing that.
How dare you?
Do you work with your girlfriend, Mark? Or your wife? Mark?
I keep them separated. Sometimes I call people, they don't answer the phone. I'm like,
Wrong number, click.
Well, he's not that smart, but sometimes he sounds like he knows what he's doing.
yeah,
Go.
Therefore, you're an ass, and I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah, but what do we know?